Icon Comic Con presents Behind the Comic Book Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Mr. 845 here, and we're doing our thing for Icon in 2025. All right, so November 1st, we got Icon Comic Con coming up, and actually we have one of our guests here that's going to be at Icon. This is Patrick Hickey Jr. Tell us, Pat. Patrick? Pat? Which
Pat's fine. Pat's
Pat?
fine.
Okay, we're
Yeah.
going to go with Pat. All
Yeah,
right,
let's go
so
with Pat.
Pat, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Patrick Hickey Jr. I am a voice actor in the video game industry. I have done lead voiceover on games like The Padre, BPM Boy, most recently short stories in Scary Places. However, you guys may know me as Phone Guy in Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit, the Macho Man Randy Savage and Mean Gene Okerlund, among 60 other voices in WrestleQuest.
Oh,
And
yeah.
oh yeah, let me tell you something, brother. Yeah. And Dracula and Renfield in Renfield Bring Your Own Blood, the video game as well.
Oh,
So
nice, cool,
yeah.
awesome, yeah.
In addition to that, I'm also the editor-in-chief and owner of Legacy Comics. We're an indie comic book company based out of Staten Island, New York. We've got like over 50 single issue comics. We're crushing it.
Yeah, awesome. So we're gonna get into it, but first and foremost, above anything else, the best thing that I like to do for my guests is if somebody wants to work with you, they want to get in touch with you, they want to use you, they want to do anything with you, what's the best way to contact you?
All of my profiles across all social media are public. They're Patrick Hickey Jr. If you just Google, I'm Google verified. Patrick Hickey Jr. LinkedIn, Patrick Hickey Jr. Super easy to get a hold of. I answer all of my DMs. You could just slide right into my DMs. I'm very approachable on Facebook,
Business
Instagram.
related DMs.
Yes, yes, I'm married and I'm married to an Italian woman.
Yeah.
So
So you'd be
yeah,
like, no weird DMs.
I won't survive. I won't make it to the con. Or I'll have a cane, you know. So but yeah,
Gonna be in a wheelchair.
it happens yeah, I'll be in a wheelchair. It happens all the time. Like somebody will just message me and go, I'm an artist. I want to do a comic, or oh, we got a trailer coming out for this indie game. Would you want to do something for us and stuff like that? So, by all means, I am super approachable. Just, just message me.
All right, awesome. So, again, he's going to be a guest at Icon Comic Con.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
we're going to do this the whole interview.
That's
I
fine.
swear that
My wife is so sick of it because the game was in development for like 3.5 years. So I'm like down here in the man cave, just like. And the thing is, when you do voice acting, it's like it's the grunts too. So it's just like I'm like, "Ugh, ugh, 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 ugh," and it's just like I felt so bad for her, but you know, so
All
yeah.
right, so let's kind of break it down, right? So we have three different things that you do.
Mm-hmm.
We have the voice acting, right? We
Mm-hmm.
have the legacy comics,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was one more other thing, and I forgot it
Yes.
already.
Yes, I'm an author. I've written seven, in addition to being a college professor for 19 years and a journalist for over 20. I've written 7 books on video game history called The Minds Behind the Game. So I've interviewed over, just for the books alone, 300 video game developers from like
Wow.
ET on Atari 2600 to like
Oh my God,
NBA
I
Jam.
played that.
hmm NBA Jam, Doom, Call of Duty, like pretty much any game that you've played as a kid, I've interviewed people that have been responsible for making it. So I tell like the kind of like ESPN 30 for 30 behind the scenes stories of
Yeah.
how those games are made. It's a lot of fun. This is how
All
I
right.
broke into the voice acting industry. So
All right, so let's break it down. So, which one do you want to start with first? Do you want to start with the video game legacy, the voice acting, or and then I messed it up again.
no, it's okay. I think probably the best way to start is the video game books because that kind of
Okay.
like led into everything else.
So let's start from the beginning first. How about that?
I feel like it's like the
So
sound of music,
yeah,
you know?
so when you started way back when you were younger,
Way
is this
back
what
when.
yeah, way back when
hmm
um what did you want to be when you grew up?
I either wanted to play professional hockey or I wanted to be like a sports announcer. Do you remember when you were in elementary school and they gave you those little booklets that
Hmm.
everyone signed and then they folded over the piece of paper and stuff like that, like when you graduated? Um, all the girls in my elementary school all wrote, "Pat, we love you, but stop talking about sports." That was just
Hmm.
like I could memorize batting averages and things like that. Hockey, baseball, just I just loved it. And then when I was 18, I got in a serious car accident, so playing sports was kind of out of the Not going to happen. So I went to college, studied journalism, got an associate's, bachelor's, and master's in journalism, started teaching, started writing. I'm a former NBC editor as well. So just that, and then it just kept going. And I remember I was at NBC for like a year, and I was just like really bored, And I went to my editor. I'm just like, I'm thinking about leaving, and he's like, why? And I was just like, I'm just bored. I'm like, it's just like five dead and 17 injured in an accident last night. That's like all I would do, like breaking news, because I was quick. And they're like, what do you want to do? And at this point, I had already been writing for several like small video game websites. I have my own entertainment website that's updated daily, reviewfix.com. So I interview video game developers on there and stuff. And I was just like, there's a game coming out for the PS3. It's probably going to be like the last great game on the PS3. I know the director, I know the PR people. I can get an interview for NBC for it. And they're like, "What's the name of the game?" And I'm like, "The Last of Us." And they're like, "Oh, we don't know, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Just let me go. Let me do it." And I ended up doing it, and it was so funny because I was like in this hotel in Bryant Park interviewing the team, and then like right after the interview's over, they're like, "Oh, the God of War Ascension team is like down the hall. Do you want to meet them?" So I ended up going to NBC and pitching them both of those stories. And then after that, NBC just let me do whatever I wanted. And I started meeting really good video game developers, ones that I didn't have access to before. So fast forward, I would say probably like 4 or 5 years after that, I'm teaching now. I'm a full-time college professor, and I'm just like bored, and I'm hitting like that glass ceiling at work. And my boss at the time is just like not fun to work for. And I'm just like, I need to do something different, like something for me. I'm like,
Hmm.
maybe I'll write a book. And he's like, hey, go write a book. Like very like matter of fact. So I ended up going into my man cave in my old house, very similar to this, just surrounded by all sorts of cool stuff. And I just start pulling out games from my collection, like Wonder Boy, Monster World, King's Bounty, E.T., NBA Jam. Um, and I'm
You
like,
you can't buy a bucket.
you can't play. I've actually interviewed Tim Kitzrow several times, the voice actor. He's
Yeah.
amazing. He's great. And I'm just like, I picked out like Mutant League football. I picked out like 5 or 6 games, and I'm just like, if I could get in contact with the people that made these games, write like their behind the scenes stories, and then pitch that to a publisher, maybe I got something. So this was like
Mhm.
October 31st, 2017.
Okay.
So now my wife was pregnant at the time. So now by Thanksgiving, I've already interviewed all 6 of these developers. So in like 3 weeks, I've been like nose to the grindstone, making phone
Yeah.
calls, emailing, got all the interviews, wrote everything up, everything's edited. And I'll never forget it because my wife was pregnant, and she was wasted on tryptophan. So like it was Thanksgiving. So she just had like 3 or 4 pieces of turkey. Turkey knocks you out. Turkey
Yes.
puts you right
She
to
had the itis.
she had the itis,
Yeah.
you know? And I'll never forget it because she's like laying down on the couch, and now I'm sitting here with like these 6 chapters, and I'm just like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna start pitching people on Thanksgiving Day. So I just started sending out emails on Thanksgiving Day, and obviously Thanksgiving is always a Thursday. So 3 days later, I had like 4 or 5 offers on the table. And I wrote 7 books in the span of 6 years. But what ended up happening was after the first book came out, all these video game developers and designers that I knew were like, this is like really cool, and I'm starting to get like some good
I'm really upset
feedback.
that you didn't interview me. Yeah. That's what
Yeah,
they probably said.
yeah, and that's what ended up leading into other books and stuff like that. But then what ended up happening was this Bulgarian video game designer reaches out to me, and he shows me his game, and it looks like a combination of like Minecraft, like Castlevania, and like the original Resident Evil. And it's called The Padre. And it's about a Catholic priest that's stuck in like this mansion with like zombies and all these abominations and stuff like that. And he's like, "Do you want to play it and like interview me?" And I'm like, "Sure." So as soon as I start playing the game, I notice that there's like a ton of typos in the dialogue. So at that point, I was a journalism professor for like 9 years, English and journalism professor for like 9 years.
Mhm.
And I go to them, I'm like, guys, like this game is text heavy. Like you need to make sure like the English is tight, otherwise like people are gonna laugh at you, like
Yeah.
you're trying to release this on PS4, on Xbox and Steam. So they're like, well, do you want to edit it? And I'm like, all right. So
For a price.
yes, yes, yes. So we discussed that. They pay me. And I edited I edited everything they gave me in like 4 hours. I was so excited. I was just like boom, boom, boom. Just so they're like shocked. So then I'm like, I just want credit in the game as a dialogue editor or a story editor, and you pay me. And they did. And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, we got more for you. And I'm like, okay. So then they paid me again. Da, da, da. Then like a month goes by, and they're like, "Do you want to edit our Kickstarter?" And I'm like, "Yo, that's important, you know." And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, but we want you to do it." Da, 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 da. So then I edit the Kickstarter. They give me like access to the Kickstarter, like tons of trust, you know. And I would say probably like a week before the Kickstarter, 2 weeks before the Kickstarter is about to go live, I'm on like Facebook with the guy, and he's talking to me. And he sounds like the Count from Sesame Street because he's got like that thick like Bulgarian one,
One.
two. Yes, yes. And I'll never forget what he said to me, and pardon my French in advance, but he's just like, "Oh, we're fucked. We're fucked." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's just like, the voice actor that was playing the Padre quit. And I'm like, "Why?" And he was just like, "Oh, some family problems and stuff." And I was just like, I think this is like the best thing that could have happened. And he's just like, "Why?" And I'm just like, "Because now I've edited
The
all of the
dialogue.
dialogue in the
Yeah.
game. So I'm like super comfortable with like what they're trying to do.
Hmm.
And the lead voice actor's voice, he sounded like Russell Brand.
Okay.
So it's like, wow, man, there's like zombies, like wow, and it's a scary game. It just didn't fit.
Uh-huh.
So it's like my daughter's 8, she would say that it's cringe, you
Yeah.
know? So then it's just like I've always been good at that movie trailer voice, like in a world, one man, one tortilla, rated PG-13, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
Nice.
but that wouldn't work because people would be laughing their ass off the entire
Yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And so I told them, I'm like, let me audition. And they're like, you do voice acting? And I'm like,
I
I grew
I
up in
do
Brooklyn.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I grew up in Brooklyn during the Jerky Boys era. I made tons of prank phone calls. I have range. I've been in bands. I've sang before. Um, I was like, let me figure it out. So then for like 2 or 3 days, I was like, I wanted a deep register, like a deep baritone. But for some reason, because like when you hear the Padre, you think of a Hispanic priest. So I'm thinking like that dark voice with like some Antonio Banderas mixed in or something like that. And they're like, no, he's English.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay. So Bloody came across this dark voice. My name is Alexander, and I am the Padre. And they were like, bro, like, let's go.
Sign him up. That's it.
So,
Close the door. Let's
so,
go.
but just now I can do it very easily. But like when I first found it, oh my God, dude, remote, my voice was so like crispy, coughing up
Uh-huh.
blood. It was awful. And they were like, can you record it like today? Like 4 hours worth of stuff. And I'm like, sure. And then I'll never forget because I sent them the audio and it was like around lunchtime. And they're like, in like 4 or 5 hours, we want you to go to Steam and delete the game from your Steam library because it was like on early access and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Delete it, then reinstall it, then restart your computer. So I do that. And then as soon as I start the game up, it's like, hello, my name. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, we're good. We're good. I'm starring in a goddamn video game, you know?
Hmm.
So that game comes out, it gets a sequel. It does well. It's like this fun indie game, but the big thing that happened was all these developers now that I was working with that wanted me to interview them for the book. So like, you do voice acting?
Yeah.
And I'm like, sure. So then I'm just doing trailers for indie games. And I mean at one point it was like I was getting like, anywhere from like 10 to 15 clients a week, just like, coming soon for the PlayStation 5, like just stuff like that. And it was just so much fun. And I just like I don't burn bridges with anybody, like especially with indie developers or musicians that I've worked with and other authors and stuff. I always keep the lines of communication open. So I've had several like really good long-term relationships in the video game industry, and a bunch of those developers were like, "Yeah, we need you to do something." And one of them was Mega Cat Studios, and they asked me to be in WrestleQuest.
Hmm.
And at first I thought I was just doing Macho Man Randy Savage, and then it was just like, oh, can you do the Road Warriors? Can you do this guy? Can you do that guy? And then I found out Luna Vachon was in the game, and I'm like, I want to do Luna Vachon. So it's just like I ended up doing like anywhere from like 90 to 100 voices in the game, but then obviously like as the game was coming out, it's like they filled in other people because, you know, at times it could be like that the guy that does Macho Man kind of sounds similar to that guy and blah blah blah. So they kind of
Hmm.
just went with like my best stuff,
Hmm.
which was great. Um and like then I said, we were just after WrestleQuest, we were off to the races. Then we hit Renfield, and then we have Five Nights at Freddy's, and I was not expecting to be phone guy at all. I auditioned for a smaller role because like as far as I always knew, like Scott Cawthon, the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's,
Hmm.
he was always phone guy,
Yeah.
and so I auditioned for like the pizzeria owner Jeff. Like if you've ever read Into the Pit, he's a pretty important character. Um and he's got a lot of lines. So I was just like, oh, I'll be in Five Nights at Freddy's. That'll be awesome. Blah blah blah. And then just one day, they were like, do you want to be phone guy? And I was just like, yeah. And was nuts. I did my lines. I was super proud of them. And then I was expecting them to be like, oh, well, you know, we want you to do this and this and this. And like they pretty much took like what I sent them, which was awesome. Which I
Yeah.
listened to.
No edits. That's crazy.
I mean, of course, like they added like the phone filter and
Hmm.
all that
Yeah.
stuff, and but like I mean, it was just a testament to I was so petrified because there's a big difference between like doing Macho Man Randy Savage, and then doing like a character that has because like in WrestleQuest it was mostly like it was kind of like micro voice acting. It was just like the best of all of these guys. Oh yeah, cream of the crop, yeah, like you know all of that stuff.
Hmm.
But it's just like
Like the taglines.
yeah, yeah. The Padre, I had a ton of like spoken word dialogue, and I had to become that character. But like this was closer to like the Padre, but it was just such like I've been a college professor for 20 years, and it's just like they Google me and they're like, "Your phone guy," and I'm just like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Dude, do you know how awesome that is?" Blah blah blah. So it's just like I was
Hmm.
super conscious of like this is probably going to be like one of the biggest roles I've ever gotten. I have to take it seriously. I listened to like every voice line from every Five Nights at Freddy's game to
Hmm.
prepare for it and stuff. And then that came out and yeah, so now I'm doing short stories in scary places. I'm doing most of the voices on short stories in scary places, and the developer of that, his name is Tony Barnes, and he so we're talking Medal of Honor, Strider, Desert Strike, Jungle Strike, Urban Strike, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Star Wars Episode 3. Like this guy
Yeah.
has been he's got a complete track record and he wanted me and I met him through doing all my interviews for my video game book. So it's just like it's been a really fun, crazy, hectic 8 years. And then you throw in creating a comic book company in between all of that, and it's been
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
No. So I mean, you have a well-versed voice acting like repertoire, right?
Yeah,
Um, I'm sure that you have a wife and now you have kids or
two,
kid.
two kids, two
Two
kids.
kids
Yeah.
now, but probably during that you had one kid, then you eventually had a second. But
Hmm.
so you kind of juggled all this going on. You know, I'm sure that it kind of put a strain on life for a little while, but it probably was really exciting the fact that you were doing this voice acting and then you know going into it with hey, this is my life, but then this is my like hobby, that type of stuff.
Yeah,
You were doing the hustle.
it's been wild. And then like my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer last year. Um, and it's like it's crazy because it's like 2024 was like my most successful year as a voice actor, um, and my most successful year as a comic book writer. Um, so it's just like it's hard. It was super hard, like trying to
Juggle that, and
yeah, because it's like you want to be happy because you're like, honey, it's the
I'm doing
number
all this great. Yeah.
because at one point, I mean, it was the Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit was the number one game on Steam for like 3 weeks. And it's the highest rated Five Nights at Freddy's game of all time. And then I would just be on the computer and I'd be like, honey. And then, you know, you look at her and she's going through what she's going through and chemo and this and that. So it's just like you kind of have to keep it in
Hmm.
and be proud of yourself, but at the same time you have to your focus shifts. And then, you know, I have an 8 and a 4-year old, so those are important ages. Like you really can't be like you can't be a jerk during those times. You know,
Yeah.
like when your kids are like 20, 21, 22, it's different. Like you could treat them like an adult, but like when they're like 8 and
Yeah.
4 and like I've been super lucky.
They still believe in Santa, man.
Yeah, they do. They do. But the thing is like I've been super lucky because like my wife cannot do anything without the kids bothering her. She can't do a thing. And like my daughter is 8 and she's already written her first comic. Um it's like our third best-selling single issue comic. And she's actually making her voice acting debut in short stories in scary places.
Nice.
So yeah, it's
Making it a
awesome.
family thing.
I'm
Nice.
trying. Well, because the thing is, it's like she's always there, my daughter, and she
Mhm.
always asks questions and stuff. And at first it was difficult, but it's just like she's so like observant and she like takes it all in and stuff. And my wife is starting to understand now because it's just like I'm gonna be in Chicago in July, so I'm starting to get flown out to places, and I'm after New York Comic Con, I got invited to New York Comic Con to sign for 2 days, and my wife just saw all the pictures. And then after people started just messaging me, and they're like, "Can I send a Funko to your home and you sign it?" And da 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 da. Da. And it's just like since October of 2024, I've basically gotten a Funko every other day at least. It's been insane how much the demand for all of the crazy stuff has been, and
Don't
then it's
worry,
just
don't worry. We'll have security guards for you, so that way.
I love it.
So no, no. But to be honest with you, Icon Comic Con is a pretty fun environment. It's very laid back. It's a lot
Smaller. It's a gymnasium, so you're gonna have a lot of fun. We'll make sure we'll take care of you. So that's first and foremost. But I also want to ask, how's your wife doing?
She's doing great. She's doing great. She's had surgery this year, so
Okay.
she's recovering. Um, if you didn't know her and you just saw her on the street, you just think she's a really good-looking Italian woman. You wouldn't know like all the stuff that she's like,
Dealing
dealing
with.
with and
Yeah.
going through. So that's good. That's good too.
Yeah.
So it's been a long like 16 months, but I think we're stronger
All
because of
right.
it.
Listen, I want to make sure thoughts and prayers. If you guys hear out, thoughts and prayers to Pat's wife, making sure that she has a swift recovery. I know it's been a long path. And that's first and foremost, I just want to take that second, right?
Yeah, man. Thank
Because
you.
that's important. She's important to you, and a lot of people think that you're important. So, it's important for us to make sure that as a human being, that she's going to be all right.
Thank you.
Um, so not to change gears, but I really want to kind of go into some of the video game first again.
Yeah.
So in going through your path and interviewing everybody, was there a specific video game that like for you was like the golden shrine of video games? I listen, I know that you've interviewed a lot of people, you got a lot of video games out there. So I'm not trying to tell you to burn a bridge, but I'm just saying nostalgia wise, do you have a favorite?
Oh, sure. I mean, I have more favorites to count. It's like it depends on the day. I would say the only game that like I've really wanted to interview somebody on the development team that said no was Pokemon.
really.
Yeah, and the thing was I have a really good relationship with Nintendo. When I was at NBC and Examiner, I used to cover their stuff all the time.
Hmm.
And they said to me, "This is what we're gonna do, Pat. We're gonna send you it's like a 35-page PDF that has like every morsel of information about Pokemon that you could ever want, so you could write your chapter." If I was anybody else, I would have been like, "Okay, thank you." And they're like, "We don't give it to everybody, but it's kind of like the Pokemon like in-house
Encyclopedia Britannica,
yeah." And I was just like, "There's
the
just
holy
one,
grail of
yeah."
Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget they sent it to me and I told them I'm like I need someone to interview. That's what makes my books different is that I sit down with somebody or I Zoom with them or I email with them and we they tell me a story, like a real story about themselves and how it connects to the game and they're like, "Yeah, we can't do that." So I actually deleted that PDF from my like that email. I didn't download the PDF because I'm just like I didn't want it
Yeah,
because if they weren't going to do it the way that I felt like it needed to be done, then I didn't want to do it. Away
yeah.
from that, I'm a huge Fallout guy. I love Fallout, and I've actually interviewed the developers of the game that became Fallout. So like before Fallout, there was a game called The Wasteland,
Okay.
um, and it's the same developers as the original Fallout and stuff like that. But when they left EA, they had to change the name, but they took like the gameplay engine and everything, and Wasteland became Fallout. So I've interviewed those guys. I've interviewed the creators of RBI Baseball, which is like my favorite
Oh.
baseball game of all time, the original on
The
Nintendo.
Nintendo, right? With the
Yep.
big bat.
Uh-huh. Yep, those torpedo bats. They knew in the 80s.
Yeah,
But
with the Yankees doing it now.
uh-huh. All of my favorite EA sports games from the late 80s and early 90s, like Lakers versus Celtics, NHL 94,
Tecmo
Triple
Super
Play.
Bowl.
Not Tecmo Super Bowl. I haven't interviewed those guys.
Oh,
That would be cool though. That would be cool though. But like those, I played all those EA games like crazy, so I've interviewed all of them. So yeah, I've been able to. I've been very lucky that I've been able to interview so many of those people on my bucket list.
yeah. I mean, this is really awesome. To be honest with you, we'll definitely have to talk after this because there is an idea that I want to throw at you. But
Hmm.
before we get into that, I want to make sure that we give you your due justice.
Justice of interviewing you. So now we went through the video game Encyclopedia Britannica, I'll call it, right? Where you're basically interviewing a lot of developers. You're getting this history out there. You started doing the voice acting. There you go. The minds behind PlayStation 2 games. So you did all this work. Now you became some like pretty big voice actor. And now you're starting this comic book company. So let's talk about that a little bit. So now this is an independent comic book company,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
What are some of the stories that you have going on?
So we've got a bunch of like really I would say our three or four main series. One is called Condry. It's about a New York City homeless man who's trying to find out who killed his father. So it's just like if you like Frank Miller's Daredevil, if you like Punisher, if you like Wolverine, if you like those badass um anti-heroes, that's kind of like he's kind of like our Deadpool or our Wolverine, like or our Spider-Man, like our key cog main character. But then we've also got Brooklyn Bleeds, which is a zombie book that takes place in Brooklyn, and this dog is actually the main character. So it's kind of like every zombie movie, book, TV show is all about people and how the people respond to the zombies, but no one ever says what happened to the dogs and the cats
And the horses.
and the
I don't know.
horses.
I don't remember The Walking Dead, the first episode or the second
Yes.
episode. They go into the city, and all of a sudden the horse explodes, and
Yep.
the zombies are eating it. I'm like, holy crap! I was like,
Hmm.
whoa.
So
So
we have that, and then we have another series called The Job, which is about a professional wrestler that loses every match. He's a jobber. Um, but he's got a hot wife and he's got a hot car, and everyone's like, "What are you doing?" Like
yeah.
you pull up to the arena in this car, you've got this hot wife that comes with you to the ring. She's like his manager and stuff like that. How are you affording this life that you have? You're making like $25 a night getting your ass kicked by somebody. And he's just like, I rob banks. So it's like him and his wife rob banks to support their pro wrestling habit. So it's just like if you like Mickey Rourke's The Wrestler and
Uh,
you like films like Dog Day Afternoon, Heat, um, so it's like bank robbery and pro wrestling, 90s pro wrestling all mixed into one. It's a lot of fun. So those are like our three like big series. But like I said, we've published over 50 single issue comics.
So
The way
now,
it'll Mhm.
hold on before we skip over that.
Yeah.
So the first one with the homeless person, did you base it off of somebody in the city?
because there's enough examples in the city to
Oh yeah.
see.
Oh yeah.
So
So the funny part is, and it's funny because I was just gonna get into it. I wrote the first like 8 or 9 issues of Conjury when I was 18. I'm 41 now. Um, and what happened was I showed the first issue to my journalism professor when I was in college, and his name's Brian McDonald. He's written tons of great books on sports history, and he used to write for the New York Post. He used to cover gang warfare in the New York Post and in the Bronx in the 80s and 90s. Totally looked up to him. And I show him the comic. He tells me, give me a couple of days to look at it. And then I go to the cafeteria and I see him there and I sit down next to him and he's like, listen, it's really good. He goes, but he goes, you're really good as a journalist. He goes, you're
mhm.
an excellent interviewer. He goes, you can make a living doing this. He goes, I don't know anybody in comics.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, but I'm thinking it's a lot harder to get like be a successful comic book writer than it is to be a journalist. And he's like, I'm
Yeah.
just letting you know
I mean,
this
he's not
because you're,
wrong, but
yeah, yeah. He was totally, straight with me, and he was just like, "You're really," he goes, "You can be a great journalist if you take this seriously." And so I listened, and I went and got 3 degrees in journalism and started teaching, and I became, like I said, became an editor at NBC, and you know, contributed to the New York Times, the New York Daily News, all these places and stuff. Covered the Sundance Film Festival, all this fun stuff. But it's like every like year or so, I'd go back to like Condry on my, it would just be a file on my computer, and I'd just be like,
the
gotta
things I
do
could do
something
with that, yeah.
gotta do something with it. So then I remember I just went on Facebook in like 2018 and I was just like, I need an artist because I had gone through like 4 or 5 other artists before in passing. Like they just didn't give me like what I was looking for. And I ended up meeting Kieran Quinn, and we did like the first 6 issues together. And we just it was just like perfect. And what happened was we did the first issue and the issue 0, and I pitched it to like Dark Horse and Image and Dynamite and stuff, and it was like right before COVID. So then COVID happens, and like all these indie comic book companies aren't accepting like pitches from new talent. And even though I
Hmm.
was a journalist for 15 years at that point, I was still considered new talent because I had no comic book experience. Um, so then I interviewed Mark Burnell, who is the editor in chief of Lesser Known Comics. That's the name of the company. And the interview got a ton of traffic on my site. And he's like, "Oh, if there's ever anything that I could do for you, let me know." And I'm like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. Have a good one." I get off the phone and then I'm just like, "Okay,
I think
Mark,
I gotta pull it. I gotta call in that favor.
yeah." I'm like, I got a script for you. Check it out." And I showed him the script and I showed him the like the 8 pages of art that we had in black and white. And a half hour later, he called me and he's like, "Yeah, we want to sign you guys." And we did issues 0, 1, 2, and 3 with him. And then what was basically happening was he was building his empire like from the ground up, and they're still in business. They have a whole bunch of successful Kickstarters under their belt. But after just like 6 or 7 months, I was just kind of like, I think I can do this myself, and I think I'd rather do it by myself. So I had a conversation with Kieran, and I was just like, if I leave, would you come with me? And he's just like, sure. Um, so then I told Mark that I was done after like issue 3, and that came out like on Halloween of like 2021. And 5 days later, I launched a Kickstarter for Legacy,
Hmm.
and we were funded in 3 hours. So I was
Nice.
asking, yeah, I was asking for 2,500. We ended up with like 76, so we were like 300% funded. We ended up getting a licensing deal with the Stokerverse, so it's just basically like Bram Stoker's family.
Yeah.
So we did a Renfield comic. Um, and we've been off to the races since then. We've done books for off-Broadway plays. We've done 2 books for 2 films.
Wow.
It's
You're a
been
busy
it's
man.
I'm trying, man. I told you it all goes back to like those 2 kids and the wife. It's just like
Yeah.
you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
And
No, the
but it's
hustle's
been
real.
it's been fun. It's been totally fun.
So, you've done all this work. It shows, right? Like you have that hustle, you have that drive. You kind of went on your own with the comic book. So now, like with the comic books style, let's say, right? So kind of bring me through the style. It's traditional art, digitized art? Like take me through that type of stuff.
So absolutely positively no AI at Legacy Comics.
Yeah, yeah.
None. Oof, like if I ever found out an artist was using AI, I would lose it. Um, but we have a nice combination of traditional artists and digital artists. And then we even have like it's like Harry Potter, like you have like wizards, and then you have muggles, and like we have like people that are like in between. So like we have a book now called Kroom that we just announced today. And it's basically like Highlander mixed with like Mega Man. It's like so much fun.
There can
And
only be one Mega Man.
yeah, like I'm telling so it started off as I was writing a story for an indie game, and then the game just kind of like got in development hell because of COVID, and I just had this great fully fleshed out story, and it was just a matter of finding the right artist. And now I have this great artist, Danny Givens, and Danny starts off with pencils and inks traditionally,
I
but
follow
he
him. I follow him. I know
he's
him.
great.
He's got great art.
Yeah, but the thing is he colors digitally.
Okay.
So it's just like, but his pencils and his inks are traditional,
Yeah.
and his inks are colored. So it's just like he's like a modern day comic book artist that's like a combination of 2 things. Um, so yeah, I would probably say it's like half and half. Half our artists are fully digital, and half of them are traditional. So,
Yeah, no, I
but yeah.
mean it's good to see the different styles, right? Because
Hmm.
a lot of people, they kind of reminisce, and I've talked to other indie comics that they say it's for them, but they put it out there, and a lot of people like the design, they like the
Hmm.
story and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
getting the different styles is always important. Um, based on these comics now, where's the next stage for Legacy Comics?
Well, the next stage is just to continue to build a fan base and to build eyes. So it's just like if like we were looking at our financials from like 2021 to like 2022, 2023, 2024, that's basically what it looks like.
Hmm.
You know, when we first started doing this after the Kickstarter was over, we had like $50 in the account. And I was just like, okay, so now we have like 2,000 books that we have to sell or else like we're not in business anymore. So then I started booking con appearances and I've been super lucky. Um, because a lot of comic book guys have to go around and really like scrounge to get space and conventions and stuff like that. But it's just like I use the fact that I've written 7 books on video game history. I use the fact that I'm a voice actor. I use the fact that like I know a lot of people in the video game industry and that I'm a good self promoter and things like that. So I use that to help myself when I'm at cons. And that's really worked to the benefit of our company. So like my goals are to just continue to get more licensing deals, because those are great to keep the lights on. Um, we've been moving a ton of digital books this year. It's crazy. I was looking at our financials the other day and it's just like we're on pace to have like the best year that we've ever had, but like our shipping costs are like incredibly down. And it's like my wife said something to me where she's just like, you haven't been making as many post office runs, and I'm just like, people are buying more digital books these days, and I'm just like, then maybe I'll offer more digital exclusives and this and that and da 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 da.
Hmm.
But it's just like my goals right now is just to, I want to have at least like an announcement a week, whether it be a new variant cover artist or a new book, and just to right now we're a quarterly publisher, so
Okay.
we release like 3 or 4, sometimes 5 books a quarter. I would love to get to the point where we could be a monthly and then hang with the big boys. But then, you know what the thing is too? It's like if you're into wrestling, TNA has been around for such a long time, and they've never like really tried to be like number one.
The WWE. Yeah.
They've always said, you know what, the WWE is awesome and we love that, but we're just gonna do like the best that we have with what we have. And I think like until I get like the resources that I need, I'm fully comfortable saying, you know what, we're just gonna focus on creating the best stories and the best art that we possibly can. And it's just like you said something before that was pretty interesting, where you're like a lot of indie publishers will say things like, "Oh, I do this for me," and I just want, like I just want to put it out there and stuff like that. And I'm a journalist at heart. That's where I have my degrees. That's where my background is. And my whole thing is like, if I'm going to write something, I'm getting paid for it.
Hmm.
So as a comic book creator, I don't say, "Oh, I love this story. I'm going to release it anyway." I go, okay, I wrote this story or somebody else wrote this story and it's really good, but now we have to promote the thing. And if it doesn't have strong pre-sales, then the print run isn't going to be as big. And if it doesn't sell, then there isn't an issue 2 or an issue 3. Like I tell people all the time, like just Condry we're working on issue 7 now. And I'm
Hmm.
just like, if issue 6 doesn't sell, it's dead. And they're like, you would do that? Like you created that character when you were 18. And I'm just like, if it keeps the lights on and it allows us to continue to create and have a company, and I have to kill my creation, I absolutely have to. So it's just like I love telling stories. I love working with new artists. I love doing the comic book thing. But it's like, to go back to the Kickstarter, I told my wife, I'm like, if the Kickstarter doesn't get funded, this is over.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
So now you mentioned you like working with different artists, but
mhm,
let's kind of go into figurative
sure.
or imaginary world for a second. So if
Hmm.
you could have one variant artist either do the cover or do the entire comic book, and I'm just talking about in the world of all artists,
Okay.
who would be your like, this is the greatest artist ever. I want to get him on a cover.
So now this is the thing. It's like it goes back to what I was saying before, where it's just like you can have a great book, a book that looks fantastic, and it could sell 10 copies.
Yeah, yeah.
And
No, I know.
I,
I'm just saying if you had to
yeah,
pick
yeah.
one,
So
who would be
my
your
thing is,
favorite?
so for my frame of mind is like I would want an artist that I would think would do the characters justice, but would be able to promote themselves and to sell books. And if you're into comics, you're gonna go like this guy. Um, I would totally love to see a Rob Liefeld Legacy Comics cover, just
Okay.
because Rob Liefeld moves books.
Yeah.
Rob, like you can say he can't draw feet, you can say he can't draw hands, you can say all of his faces look similar, but
Yeah.
bottom line is like
No disrespect. He's been in the game for a while.
40 something
But
years, you know?
but some of the stuff that he's drawing, I he
Yeah.
gets clowned on it all the time. I mean,
Yep.
especially the Captain America,
Hmm. See, and
Um,
that's the thing though too. It's just like so many people. There's so much misinformation out there
yeah,
because like that Captain America thing, that was an ad. That was an ad in house. That was never a cover.
yeah.
So many people like, oh, that's the worst cover. It's like, bro, it was never a cover, so it's just like for me, um I just think if we got somebody like that, like as a businessman, I would say, yeah, I would want to do like Rob Liefeld or David Nakayama, who does beautiful covers that really sell well. To if I could have like my golden goose, like it doesn't matter how many it sells. Oh, it's absolutely like either Jim Lee or Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
Like um interiors, whew, that's hard. I was actually just talking about him today, and now his name just completely escapes me. The guy that's doing not Ultimate, Absolute Wonder Woman that did the first 5 issues.
Hmm.
He's amazing. He's amazing. I love his stuff. I love Eric Powell, who does the Goon. He's amazing. He's really got that old school noir tough guy feel.
Hmm.
80s Frank Miller. I mean, Chef's Kiss. Like, that's like all of my comics, I don't want to say are macho, but it's just like they're definitely like testosterone filled, just like tough guys doing tough guy shit, and it's like the women don't
It's
take
a
any
new
shit.
it's a New York style comic
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. So it's just like I would love to have somebody like that, like Frank Miller in his prime. Whew, that would be some
Yeah.
really good stuff.
No, I listen. Yeah, I completely agree. And the biggest thing about comics is like you never know. You throw things into the universe, and then
Hmm.
sometimes the multiverse comes kicking back, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
it's some great stuff. So you've been through all these different places. You've been
Been going to cons now. Do you feel that the digital age has shown, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, that the digital age, the digital comic is something that's there, but people still love the feel of paper, the feel of actually holding the comic book in their hands and looking at that cover that this artist did that they admire, and they're like, I have this in my hands.
Yeah.
It's a 9.8. Let's say I graded it, or let's say I opened it up and I bought 2 copies and I'm reading one and I go get the other one graded, and I'm just like, this is a great story. Look at the art. I'm loving this. Do you see the fact that you're traveling through cons and then you have the digital world as well? Because you're also very active on social media. So do you feel that, doing both is the way to go nowadays, being more heavy on digital, or still the con um, uh, road show, if you will, is kind of the way to go still?
See, the thing was, it was like that's a great question, by the way. When my wife got diagnosed with cancer, I was basically like, I can't do cons for like the rest of the year. And I ended up doing like New York Comic Con at the end of the year, and I ran a con in Staten Island, which was awesome. We had like 80 vendors. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. I'm sure organizing
Yeah.
something. It's crazy working with all those vendors, but it's totally rewarding at the end. But I said to myself, how am I going to like reach new people if I can't do cons? And I ended up just doing a podcast a week, um, just trying to get on as many podcasts as possible. And then what we started to do is we have these. These are, it looks like a trading card.
Sketch card.
It looks like a sketch card, but it's actually
Okay.
like the cover of a book. And then in the back, I'm going to put my fingers over it, but there's a QR code right here.
Uh-huh.
And you scan it on your phone and you can read the whole comic in high resolution on your phone. Um, so what I ended up doing was, even though I couldn't attend cons, I would send like 10 or 15 of my friends with those cards, and I'm just like, just give them to random people, just if it gets thrown out, whatever, and then we just started getting more people interested in our stuff that way.
Yeah.
And that's been fun to do those. And then the thing is, when something's working when like 4 or 5 local indie comic book publishers in your area start doing the same exact thing,
Hmm.
so it's like I would go to cons and they would be like, oh, we have trading cards, blah blah blah, and then I'm like, oh, and they go, yeah, we saw you doing it, so we had to do it. And I'm like, okay, listen, emulation is the highest form of flattery. I'm
Yeah.
fine with it. So readers are changing. I'm noticing every week when I go into the comic book store to get my pulls that the clientele is getting older and older. And they love their
Hey.
it's okay,
Hey.
I'm old too, you know,
Yeah.
but it's just like, they're in their 40s and their 50s and they still want to hold books, but the thing is, it's just like we have to reach a new audience. So it's just like the
Yeah.
trading cards have helped us, and then like the digital stuff and being on like websites like Global Comics where you're basically getting paid like per page that someone reads. Like I'll get an email and be like, somebody read like 4 pages of Condry Zero and you got paid like 2 cents, and you're like, okay. But then sometimes somebody ends up reading like a whole thing, and then you get so the comic book industry is adapting right now, and you just have to be flexible. I don't think we're in a full-on digital age yet, but I do feel like the way you handle yourself online and the way you promote your stuff will help you gather new readers. So physical sales are still like where it's at, and you have to
Hmm.
do cons, and and the thing is too, you have to do cons and you have to have a website that works properly. I don't know, I can't tell you how many indie comic book publishers I've gone to their website and I click on something and the site crashes or whatever,
Yeah, 404.
or someone's on a podcast live and you've got like 5 or 6 people on the site at the same time and the site's just like super slow.
Hmm.
You can't have that. So it's just like with us, we have a website that works, that's updated daily. We have a Patreon that works, that's updated daily. Our Instagram, our Facebook pages are updated daily. So it's just like that's kind of like what people want now. They want like a social media presence, a digital presence, and then at the same time they want to be able to pick up your books physically.
Yeah.
So now you have to do more than ever now. So
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of mixtures, and so you know, the comic book world is very challenging, and kind of making it. I know you're kind of a little bit more blessed in the sense of other art, indie artists and indie creators, in the sense that you're in New York City, so
yeah.
it makes it a lot easier. There's 8 million people there, right? So eight
Hmm.
million people, and there's probably 1% of that 800, like let's say 800,000 is, and I'm underestimating here, are nerds like us that like comics, that read
Yeah.
comics,
Yeah.
and really kind of like the history and stuff like that. So what is one thing that you can give somebody as advice, right? So like they're looking to be you someday. They either want to get into voice acting, so we could kind of break it up into three. They want to be a writer, they want to be into voice acting, or they want to create their own comic book series. Um, what kind of advice could you give for all three personalities of your life?
I feel like Mick Foley now. Like I have like 3 different things going. I think if I could say one thing that connects to all three before we get to all three, I would say is you can't expect different results if you're not willing to do different things. You
That's an
know, so
Einstein quote, I think.
yeah. But it's like so it's like I'll give you an example. So I'm doing the video game summit in Chicago in July, and I'm there as like the author of the minds behind the games books. However, um I'm gonna have Five Nights at Freddy Funko there. And we also have a comic. We have a Minds Behind the Games comic where I interviewed one of the creators of Red Dead Revolver. So it's like it's the development story of Red Dead Revolver, but in comic book form. So it's just like
Hmm.
so I'm gonna have that at the table too. So the thing is, there's not gonna be any other comic book people at this. It's a video game convention, and I'm gonna be like the only comic book guy.
Hmm.
So naturally, I'm gonna have video game inspired comics, but then I'm also gonna have like the job and Condry there too. So the thing is, it's just like the advice for comic book people is like don't travel the path that everyone else has traveled. So like my whole thing is like there are some amazing comic book stores in New York City, in Brooklyn, in Queens, um, and I'm not in a rush to get into any of them, because the thing is if you sell your comic book at a comic book store, it's basically on consignment. So if you're like your book is $5, the comic book store takes 250 and then you make 250. So it's just like, but you did all of the work and the comic book store takes half. It's not a smart business model for an indie comic book guy, especially when your
Hmm.
print run is like 500, 1,000. You're not going to be financially successful selling your comics at comic book stores.
Hmm.
So the way that you have to do it is you have to be prevalent on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram, and do podcasts and do this and do that and have direct sales on your website. You can definitely throw, 5 or 10 copies of your books at like your local comic book shop. So this way that kid in you is happy and you can go, oh, my books are in a comic book store, but like your bills are never going to be paid. So the thing is, it's just like as a comic book creator, the second that you kind of like strip all of those like mores of like
Yeah, the overhead.
the way that you're supposed to do it and you just say how can I do it so I am successful,
Hmm.
that then you'll be a lot more successful. So it's just like I tell people all the time, if you're selling books, you're successful. But then the thing is, it's just like how successful do you want to be? And my whole thing is like as of right now, all of my books for the rest of the year are paid for. We have our budget is completely like we are in a perfect place to publish our spring, summer, and winter books and stuff. Also, if you want to do comics, you have to be so much more than a comic book creator. You have to be a businessman. You have to sell ads in your books. You have to negotiate prices for your tables, this, that, the other thing, and it's just like you have to fight for every inch that you get, and it's an everyday thing. It's a full-time job. So that would be my advice for the comic book people. Like, if you're not going to invest like 100% into it, then you're not going to get the payoff that you want. Voice acting, I would say, um, it's hard. It's not for everybody. Everyone thinks that they can do it. Um, but it's really there's a lot of politics in voice acting.
Hmm.
It's really about who you know and how willing you are to take critique and adapt, and how many times you're willing to do retakes and this and that and the other thing. And the thing is, everyone's entry point in voice acting is different. Mine is, if I didn't have all this video game journalism experience, I would have never got into it. So it's just like, I
Hmm.
have people that go, "Oh, can you give my demo to this guy?" And I would be like, I've never given my demo to anybody. And they go, "Wait, but you did Renfield, you did Five Nights at Freddy's, you did WrestleQuest, you did all these games, and you never you don't have a demo reel or any of that stuff." And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Because I've gone out to dinner with these people. Like, I know them. They like, be in a restaurant, and I'll be like, roast beef. Like, what do you want for dinner? Roast beef. And like they're just like, yeah, that's the guy. You know. Um, so it's just like it's different. If you're just breaking in as a voice actor, I don't know how to help you. All I can tell you though is like in the beginning it sucks. It's hard. Um, Even bigger roles, like I know people that have worked on Dragon Ball Z, and they're like there you go. So one of my buddies, he just did the fan film. He was Broly in the Jonathan Crane. He's great. Um but the thing is, like, the money is not great. You're not gonna like, so how do you make money as a voice actor? You sign Funko, you sign figures, you go to cons. And the thing is, it's just like, I've joked around with some of my friends before, and I'm just like, you're not a con person. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, if you're gonna sit at your table on your phone the entire time and be miserable at your booth, you're not going to make any money. And they'll go to me, but they're like, Pat, you're crazy. They're like, you stand up the entire con. You make eye contact with people, and I'm just like, because you have to do that, because
Yeah.
you have to create an experience for people. So again, we talked about
This,
comic
this is a
books.
this is a really good fun.
That's okay.
You almost got me cursing. It's a really good message. I mean, because to be honest with you, this is in the business world, but also in the comic book world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say this to people a lot. Like, you're your own cheerleader, you're your own salesperson. You
Yep.
have to sell your stuff. And
I
Yep.
have people that have gone to my con as indie comic book people that nobody's going to know them. And how are you expecting people to take a chance on your book, on your experience,
If
if
you're
you
like
don't
this
get
the whole
up and,
time.
yeah, if you're on your phone, like you're
Yep.
living the now, get the
Mm-hmm.
customer now. They're right in front of you. Just say, hey, I have actually somebody that does out of time comics, right? So shout out to Mike. He actually has a sign that he has, and he stands in front of you and he says, it says, ask me about my comic or something like that. It's a gimmick, but it gives people that open door, that comfortability with you.
Yep.
If you're just so standoffish, like I've even seen at New York City Comic Con, people are like, there's like thousands of people walking by, and nobody's at this person's table, and they're just like,
Yep.
or they're drawing, and they're
Yep.
not looking up, they're not interacting with people, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, how do you expect to sell anything? So sorry, I didn't mean to take
No,
that
no,
tangent, but
it's
I
the
totally
truth.
100% believe in what
And
you just
and
said.
coming from somebody too, like I told you, like I organized St. Anne's Comic Con in Staten Island, and it's just like when I'm putting um the floor plan together, you know, I'll say, this guy, he's great, but he's cash repellent. No one's gonna buy anything off of him. So I'm not gonna put him in the front where
Mm-hmm.
like all this great traffic is, because like I want, even if I think like this guy may be a better artist than this other guy. If this other guy though is charismatic and boisterous and fun and energetic, he's gonna be in the front two aisles or whatever. So it's just like, as a voice actor, not only do you have to be a voice actor and do the work and do good work, but then you have to be willing to travel and do all those other things. I've been super blessed that like over the past 2 years, I've done characters like Dracula, Mean Gene Okerlund, Macho Man, Phone Guy, and I could pretty much sign any Five Nights at Freddy Funko because I'm the narrator of Five Nights at Freddy. I could sign Mean Gene Okerlund Funko. I could sign Macho Man Funko. I could sign Dracula Funko. I could sign all the Dracula variant Funkos. Like, they have Care Bear Dracula Funkos and all. Like, people bring me all sorts of crazy Funko to sign. And the thing is, a lot of voice actors work in indie games for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
for a little for for chump change, and they never get to the point where they can voice a character like that has some type of staying power. So the thing is, my advice is like, if you love this, you stay in it for as long as possible and you wait for an opportunity, because once you get, and it's like I've had like at New York Comic Con, I was sitting with a bunch of really accomplished voice actors, and I was signing my first Funkos of all time, and they were joking around with me. They're like, "Oh, you're like one of us now," and blah blah blah. But I said to one of them, I'm like, "When was the last time you voice acted like in something?" And they're like, "Oh, like 6 or 7 years." And I was just like, and it like kind of hit me, and it's just like once you get that like one or two big roles under your belt, you can do this, like you can do the con thing for a really long time. You obviously have to stay relevant and continue to work and stuff like that, but like people, I saw people come in to sign to get their stuff signed by voice actors that hadn't worked since like the early 2000s, and those characters resonated with them that much.
Hmm.
And so it's just like, if you have to play as a voice actor or and as a comic book person, you have to play the long game.
Hmm.
You have to take care of yourself emotionally, physically, mentally, and you have to just play the long game. Writing is probably the hardest of all of them. And the problem with writing too is everybody thinks that they can write. Everybody. Like when my first book came out, I had somebody go, "Oh, I wrote a book when I was in high school." My father was like, "Oh yeah, that's what you wrote about video games, blah blah blah." But it's just like, great authors are finishers. They have an idea, they see it through, and then once you create it, it's not yours anymore. Then it's just like, then you just let society like just kind of pick it apart and rip it to shreds, and or bask in it and love
Or
it,
love it, yeah.
or love it, and then you go on to the next thing and the next thing. And um it's um it's not for everybody. Um and especially now too, like I've learned so much too, because like I've edited a couple of memoirs over the past year, and like Legacy is doing more than comics. Like we're publishing like fiction and nonfiction like books now. And it's just like crazy to see like how much work goes into like the creation of like a fiction book, like a novel,
Hmm.
and then just somebody could go on Amazon like 20 minutes later and just go, 1 star, sucks, blah 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 blah,
Hmm.
so it's just like you have to be prepared for that. You have to totally be prepared for that.
And it could be they never read a page in the book and they could write it.
Yep.
That's what sucks is,
Yep.
you get these ghost accounts that just leave comments, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't fight it because
Yeah.
they don't want to knock it down for you.
Yep. And it's like Amazon has gotten a little bit better with that, where they have like this person is a verified purchaser of the product and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but it's still like anybody can still create like a ghost account. So the thing is, it's just like, as a writer, you have to be able to have a really thick skin, and you have to be, it's super lonely to be like a writer. Like my wife has never read like any of my books, not any of my comics and stuff like that. It's just like, it's not her thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at her for that. Sorry to quote Tupac, I ain't mad at you. But it's just like, it's just par for the course. It's just
Yeah.
like, I remember one time I interviewed Philip Seymour Hoffman, and it was for his like directorial debut at Sundance. And I was like, what do you like more, like acting or directing? And he said something that was crazy. He said actors are like super lonely, and that it's just like they just get like trotted out to
There's
act their to act their
there's
scenes.
yeah, there's enough of them, uh that they leave their partner for the other one, and there's a lot of
Yeah,
it's a soap opera within
yeah.
Hollywood, if you will. Yeah.
Uh-huh. But he was saying like on scene, it's just like Tom Cruise will go out, act his scenes, and then go back in his dressing room and just stay there until he's needed again. He's like, but when you're a director, everyone is asking you questions about everything.
Hmm.
And you're like the dad, like on scene, and everyone relies on you for stuff. And it's just like, when you're a writer, and you're creating all of these worlds and stuff, it's still very lonely, because you're by yourself. And like, but when you're the editor, and the writer is reaching out to you, and you're trying to establish this relationship, it's like so super rewarding. So it's just like, I try and tell every writer, stay in it for as long as you can, and then start editing other people, so you start understanding like where other people are coming from, because like the best writers understand dialogue, they're empathetic, they can feel like things that normal people wouldn't feel, and the only way you get that is through life experience. But the thing is, like, writing for the most part, especially in fiction, is so selfish. You create these characters out of midair, you kill them out of midair and stuff like that, and it's just like, I'm very thankful that like my backbone is in journalism, is in nonfiction, and then telling all of these stories in video games and stuff like that. Because it's like when I create my characters, I try and create them from a point of like honesty and a point of reality. So this way they can stand strong on their own 2 feet.
Yeah.
So that would be the advice I would give writers. Like try and stay in it, but have thick skin, and then try and write from a point of view of like who else is going to enjoy this, not just
Yeah.
me. You know, because who
Yeah.
gives a shit about you? You know.
Yeah,
So
because you can't spend money on yourself, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, so it depends on the passion, but you know, like some people have their passion projects, but if you're a business person, you want to make money off of it, you want to be
Hmm.
longevity wise,
Yeah.
you have to have that listen, I want to sell this. So
Yeah.
how am I going to sell it? You know, that
Yep.
type of passion to
That
it.
that's
So
always been my mindset too. And I know so many people in indie comics that are like they're firemen or cops or custodians or this and that, and they use that money, their overtime money, to pay for their comics. And my thing is like if I ever took a dime out of what I make from my 9 to 5 to pay for my comics, I would be disgusted with myself and I would probably be divorced. So it's just like if my comics aren't making money on their own, then I don't have a comic book company.
yeah.
So
No,
yeah, I
but
think
I
that's the
mean,
best way to be, you know?
this has been awesome, Pat. Thank
Yeah,
you
man.
very much, man. So this is Patrick Hickey Jr., man. He's a legend right now. So definitely check him out at Icon Comic Con. It's November the 1st in Fishkill Rec Center, Fishkill, New York. Did I freeze?
Am I back?
Yes, you're back, sir.
That was weird. Zoom just shut down. Anyway, uh, so Icon Comic Con is November the 1st from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a Saturday. It's the day after Halloween. We got some awesome Halloweeny theme type of stuff to do with the kids. So you don't have to just use it on Halloween. You could bring it. You could bring the kids there all dressed up. We're gonna have some candy for them as well. But we want to be able to get them interested in not only comic books. We want to get them interested in voice actors. We want to get them interested in the comic book artists, because without the artists, without the writers, without any of this, we can't have this community. So
Sure.
that's why we have Icon Comic Con in Fishkill Rec Center. Like again, November the 1st. Patrick Hickey Jr. is going to be there signing some Bunkos, and it's been a great, awesome interview with you, getting to know you, and I've seen you online, we've talked, so it's great to actually see you virtually and then eventually see
Absolutely.
you at the con. So I definitely
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
it. So everybody, listen, this is Mr. 845, and we're going to be interviewing more and more indie artists, creators, writers, vendors. We have more things coming up. This is all for Icon Comic Con. Please like, follow, share. But also, if you see any of the people that we interview, please like, follow, share them as well. Without the support digitally, which is a free thing that you could do for them, they won't be able to do a lot of the things that they do. So making sure that you support in any way possible, watching the videos, tagging them, and really interacting with their content, the more that they can do the things that you love. All right, guys. That being said, we're going to be hitting the streets, interviewing more people coming up.